On the morning of July 6, 1942, advance units of Panzergrenadiers from the Wehrmacht's 24th Panzer Division stormed the southern outskirts of Voronezh. The city was on the brink of surrender, and General Chernyakhovsky's tank crews were supposed to have the decisive say. Alas, they failed to do so. The following evening, one of the most dramatic episodes of the city's defense unfolded on the streets of Voronezh, in which the successful crew of a German Panzerkampfwagen IV tank played a special role. From the Shalovsky forest, where the threat emanated, the city was defended by scattered infantry units, mainly from the NKVD troops, who had only light small arms. They were unable to stop the advancing German armored vehicles, so the tanks and motorized infantry of the 21st Panzer Grenadier Regiment captured the Chijovka area on the right bank of the Voronezh River practically without resistance. The Soviet tank brigades of the 18th Tank Corps, which were defending the city, were at that time on another front. Since the morning of July 6, the 110th and 181st Tank Brigades had been fighting fiercely on the southwestern outskirts of Voronezh, near the village of Malyshovo, against another regiment of the 24th Panzer Division, the 26th Panzergrenadier Regiment. Another brigade of the Corps, the 180th Heavy Tank Brigade, remained on the left bank of the Voronezh River, ready to repel a possible enemy offensive on the eastern bank of the Don. There was no one to stop the German breakthrough at Chijovka. As they continued their advance, the tanks and armored personnel carriers of the 21st Panzergrenadier Regiment marched along the entire 20 years of October Street, all the way to the dam, and then crossed the Agresovsky Bridge over the Voronezh River. Units of the 41st NKVD Regiment, as well as a battery of the 254th Anti-Aircraft Regiment of the 3rd Air Defense Division, were supposed to defend this direction on the left bank of Voronezh in case of a sudden capture of the Agresovsky Bridge. The bridge had been mined in advance. However, the unexpected happened. Having crossed it unhindered, the Germans found themselves on the left bank and moved on. How could this have happened? Researcher Igor Stvyashkov perhaps offers an explanation in his article. Perhaps the anti-aircraft gunners were overwhelmed by the Nazi air raid, and the demolition crews simply lost their nerve at that critical moment as the Nazi tanks approached. Under enemy machine gun and cannon fire, they were unable to carry out their duties. It can also be assumed that, confidently approaching the bridge along the causeway, the Germans did not open fire at all until the very last moment. Therefore, their appearance here was so unexpected and stunning that the bridge guards, anti-aircraft gunners and demolition team, who mistook them for their own, were crushed without having time to offer any resistance to the enemy. Having crossed the bridge, the Germans occupied a number of houses on the southern outskirts of the village of Prydacha. Several tanks, accompanied by motorized infantry, advanced even further and reached the territory of the evacuated aircraft factory and the adjacent Perdeka station. In this area, German sappers disabled part of the railway bed and blew up the railway bridge in the Monastyrshinka area. That evening, the defenders of Voronezh lost their second important bridge across the Voronezh River, the Chernavskoye Bridge. Around 8 p.m., Junior Sergeant Sharapov, the duty demolition specialist, discovered a column of unknown tanks moving along the right bank toward the Chernavskaya Dam. Sharapov telephoned for instructions from his superiors, but received no response. A decision had to be made immediately, and the sapper didn't hesitate. Several spans of the bridge blew up, blocking the tank's path. Unfortunately, these were tanks from the 110th Tank Brigade, heading to the left bank for repairs. Unlike his colleagues who were on duty in the morning at the Vograsovsky Bridge, Junior Sergeant Sharapov took full responsibility and managed to detonate the explosive charges, but he made a mistake. On July 7, Lieutenant Colonel Dyolden, head of the Voronezh Combat Sector, reported to Lieutenant General Golikov, commander of the Bryansk Front. I report that the Vograsovsky Bridge is intact, but occupied by the enemy. The Chernavsky Bridge was blown up prematurely, without my orders, by Junior Sergeant Sharapov, who panicked, mistaking his tanks for enemy tanks. This led to a breakdown in communications with the 233rd and 287th NKVD regiments, located in the western part of the city. Junior Sergeant Sharapov is brought to trial by a military tribunal. NKVD regiments, continuing to clear the city, encountered difficulties in combating enemy tanks due to a lack of artillery. Thus, by the end of July 6, the city's defenders had lost two vital bridges across the Voronezh River, significantly hindering the transfer of reinforcements and the evacuation of the wounded, and also preventing the withdrawal of disabled equipment to the left bank. This had the most disastrous impact on the losses of the 110th and 181st Tank Brigades, which continued to fight against the advancing Germans on the right bank. At dawn on July 7, the German offensive on the center of Voronezh began from the south and southwest. Tanks and motorized infantry of the 24th Tank Division, reinforced by the 60th Motorized Regiment from the 16th Motorized Division, advanced. From the north, from the direction of Podkletnoy, the Grossdeutschland Division advanced. They were opposed by infantry battalions of the 41st, 233rd, and 287th NKVD regiments, as well as other scattered Soviet units. The critical situation that developed on July 6 in the city's defense sector arose due to the instability and panic of the command of the 287th and 41st Operational Regiments of the NKVD, which was under pressure from repeated orders from division commanders to withdraw these units from the city to their new deployment location. As a result, the 41st Regiment, when Colonel Glagalenkov was still the garrison commander, independently withdrew from the defensive sector on the night of July 6, 1942, and retreated in the direction of Novaya Usman. On the morning of July 6, he was returned. The 287th Regiment, despite categorical orders to hold the line to the last man, withdrew 3 times, thereby exposing the most critical area of the defense, the southwestern outskirts of Voronezh. On July 7, both regimental commanders displayed sluggishness and a reluctance to carry out their assigned mission. Thanks to the inconsistency of the commanders of the 41st and 287th Regiments, who failed to carry out the garrison commander's order to occupy and hold the defensive line, small groups of enemy machine gunners with individual tanks managed to break into the city along Vyborgskaya and Sofia Perovskaya streets and simultaneously occupy the Vobrusovsky Bridge. Of course, not all Soviet units defending the city during these days performed in such a manner. There are many examples of how tenaciously the units of the Voronezh garrison fought and stood to the death, a fact acknowledged by the enemy. The disparate units of the Voronezh garrison, lacking unified leadership and communications, were unable to withstand the enemy onslaught for long. The situation was exacerbated by the lack of artillery support, as well as the Germans' complete air superiority. The Chief of Staff of the 40th Army, Major General Rogozny, reported to the Bryansk Front headquarters at 10 o'clock on July 7. Enemy aircraft are continuously bombing Voronezh, which is burning. The Army's troops, the 18th Tank Corps and the 232nd Rifle Division, are poorly supplied with ammunition and fuel. Measures have been taken to restore the situation. I request that the air be cleared of enemy aircraft, since any troop maneuver is impossible under daylight conditions. The combat diary of the German 24th Panzer Division describes the events of those days, July 7–8, 1942, as follows. In the early morning hours, a concentric offensive on the center of Voronezh begins. At this time, armored units advance all the way to the railroad tracks in the north of Voronezh in order to stop and destroy the enemy, whose front is deployed to the north. He is located north of the division's borders and, under pressure from the 3rd Motorized Division, is retreating to the south. The enemy is attempting to break through the city to the southeast, using the Voronezh bridges. The 3rd Motorized Division relieves the Grossdeutschland Motorized Division during the night. The 60th Infantry Regiment occupies the western part of Voronezh by evening after fierce street fighting involving infantry and tanks of the 24th Panzer Division. Due to a lack of fuel, only a few tank units were used during the fighting. A special radio message announced the fall of Voronezh. Relief for the 16th Motorized Division has been prepared, its first units arrive at midday. That night, the advance units of the 24th Tank Division leave the east bank of Voronezh, after the 60th Infantry Regiment finally clears the western part of the city the following morning. Command passes to the 16th Motorized Division at 11 o'clock on July 8. The division is moving forward to cover the Don, to the area near Borshi Grimichi, in order to be fully equipped and have its equipment repaired there over the course of several days.